Hello and welcome to another episode of EOR Payroll and Beyond, presented by Procloz. Today we have a special guest with us who brings with her decades of experience in scaling up companies such as Mixmax, Typeform, Expedia Group, and many more. She's a LinkedIn top voice, extensively contributing to valuable knowledge being spread across the platform and within the industry. Welcome to the podcast, Margaret.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Before we jump into the nitty-gritties of our episode for today, Margaret, could you just walk us through, a bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So right now I am the principal recruiter at Mixmax, which is a sales engagement platform that's actually evolving into an AI-powered productivity tool for modern teams. I lead hiring globally, primarily for engineering, product, and occasionally marketing or sales positions. And prior to that, I've spent 20 years in recruiting for a number of different tech companies of different sizes. So some large ones like VMware or Expedia, mid-sized tech organizations, and also tech startups. So in terms of Mixmax, we are a fully remote company. I hire across multiple regions. It's primarily Europe, Brazil, and Argentina, occasionally the Middle East or occasionally the US or Canada. And we have employees based in a few other countries like Nicaragua or the Philippines. And because we don't have a legal entity in every country, in fact, we only have a legal entity in the US, we primarily hire contractors, which gives us flexibility, but it also brings some unique challenges when it comes to compliance, payroll, and candidate expectations.
I'm sure hiring contractors, you do have a lot of complexities that come into place as well. But then what are some of the unique hiring challenges you face compared to a traditional office environment?
Well, I mean, firstly, there are definitely benefits. I remember recruiting for positions when I could only hire someone in a specific city in Germany, or I could only hire someone in London. So obviously, being able to hire people remotely gives us a much wider talent pool because we're not limited to one country or an office. But remote global hiring definitely brings its own challenges. So one will be time zone alignment. So even if someone is brilliant, if their working hours are 8 hours off from the rest of the team, collaboration suffers. So we avoid hiring in, say, Asia because the overlap with our core teams is just too small. Also, specialized roles are still hard to fill, even if you can hire globally. So I've sourced in emerging tech markets, for example, across parts of Africa for my engineering positions. And while I found many strong coders, when I say most, it's like 95% of candidates actually struggle with system design interviews. They just didn't pass them. And it's often due to the lack of exposure to large scale architecture, not due to lack of raw talent. Of course, some candidates, they prefer full-time employment with benefits. So not everyone wants to be a contractor. I can understand that in some countries like France, contractor tax burdens are quite high. We actually once lost a great candidate at an offer stage, even though he said he would be interested in being a contractor. When he looked into that, it just turned out that we would need to match his just matching his permanent salary as a contractor would require 20,000 bump, so, and not even talking about increasing his salary. Also, there are these compliance and payroll logistics. So when hiring globally without local entities, you need trusted partners for legal compliance or payroll infrastructure. And that's obviously where platforms like EOR, employee of record, and contractor management services become essential.
Got it. But then you mentioned global is your landscape when you look at hiring, right? So what does global hiring really look like on the ground at Mixmax?
Yeah, so at Mixmax, global hiring is both strategic and flexible. So we are a fully remote company. We actually used to have an office in San Francisco prior to the pandemic, but not anymore. Right now, we're fully remote. In theory, we can hire almost anywhere, but in practice, we're very intentional about where we hire. So right now, we prioritize regions like Europe and Latin America because the time zone overlap works well within our existing teams. So, for example, our engineering team, they are mostly based in Europe, but also in Brazil and Argentina. So there is still that half a day overlap between the teams. We avoid hiring in places like, not just we don't hire in places like Australia or Asia, not because of lack of talent, but the collaboration will be too difficult across time zones. And even though sometimes people say, yes, I don't mind working European hours, really, I don't think so, because I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to in different locations. They took the job working, until midnight of the time because they work with West Coast, for
Right.
example. And it gets very tiring after a while. So people might think, oh, okay, I'll do it because the salary is good or the opportunity is good, but actually in reality that really affects your personal life. So while it's global, it's not random. We assess each hire based on the time zone, team composition, compliance feasibility, and whether we can support a great employee experience in that region. So global hiring for us means designing for the distributed success, not just checking a box.
Understood. So, coming to the legal and complexities and the compliances and the contractual part, have you encountered any legal or contractual complexities when hiring internationally?
Yes, yes, most definitely. So, one challenge is actually understanding how contracting norms vary by country. So, in some countries, Poland and Romania, as an example, just because we've hired engineers there, many
Hmm.
professionals prefer working on B2B basis. It's just more tax efficient for them. It's actually more like a norm, not the exception. It can be quite difficult to find someone in those countries who wants to work on a normal contract. Then in countries like France, as I mentioned, and I think Germany as well, so the contractor tax burden is really quite high that many candidates prefer permanent role with benefits. And I think Germany and Belgium are quite similar. It depends obviously on the setup, but I think Germany will be quite similar. We also have to be aware of how contract types are perceived. In some countries, being contractor like signals flexibility and freedom. In others, it might feel like less secure or undesirable. So while we keep things consistent on our side, we always look at the local context and adjust our approach accordingly.
Got it. And I understand, hiring is something which is a completely ballgame altogether. And then there comes payroll, right? And
Yes.
it opens up another can of worms for a lot of people. But then how important is managing payroll correctly with a distributed team?
Oh, it's absolutely critical. When you're, well, it's always critical, but when your team is spread across multiple countries, payroll mistakes become magnified, both in terms of employee trust and compliance risks. So for us, paying on time and correctly is just a non-negotiable. If there is ever a delay or an issue, even with a third-party provider, it really reflects on our professionalism and affects retention because we're working with people livelihood. So because we hire globally without setting up legal entities in every country, we rely on platforms that handle contractor payments and ensure compliance with local laws. So these partners have been essential in helping us in operating smoothly and scaling our teams without any legal friction.
That's great. What are some compliance gotchas you have been seeing in global hiring?
Sure. So one major gotcha is actually misclassifying contractors as employees. So even if someone signs a contractor agreement, if they're working fixed hours under direct supervision and don't serve other clients, they might legally be considered an employee in some countries. Another one is not localizing contracts properly. So, for example, IP clauses that are enforceable in the US may not hold up in European courts. So, you kind of need to work with partners who understand legal nuances in each jurisdiction. Also, data protection regulations like GDPR in Europe require careful handling of candidate and employee data, especially when using third-party platforms. So, these aren't always obvious at first, but they matter a lot when you're scaling across borders.
Got it. Well, we have talked about how the work is at Mixmax and how are things in the industry. But then, how has remote work really impacted your talent acquisition strategy?
Well, I think remote work has completely transformed how we source and hire talent. We no longer compete only in local markets. We can tap into highly skilled professionals around the world, often faster and more cost effectively than before. So it's allowed us to build more diverse teams, and not just in terms of geography, but in terms of working styles, perspectives, and backgrounds. But that said, we've also had to rethink our screening and evaluation processes. Well, we've done that before, but we now put even more, stronger emphasis on qualities like written communication, self-direction, async collaboration skills, because those are really essential in a remote setup. So it's not just same process, wider pool. It's actually a full rethinking of what great performance looks like in a remote first company.
And I definitely agree to that, Margaret, because I understand that and I have in my past experiences I also worked in different setups wherein I'm working for US
Mhm.
times and Indian time zones at the same time. And I totally agree that the syncing of the collaboration skills is absolutely
Yeah.
crucial in terms of getting this sorted out. Now, moving forward, have you ever used EOR or payroll outsourcing solutions, and what prompted that selection?
Yeah, so I've used that. So at Typeform, my previous company prior to Mixmax, we use EOR providers in countries where we didn't have legal entity, but we need to hire quickly. And it allowed us to onboard employees without the overhead of setting up local infrastructure. So, in fact, when I started working at Typeform, I was initially hired by EOR for a few months, and then actually they opened the legal entity. So that's actually, once we reached a certain headcount in a country, we sometimes transition to opening an entity. It just really depends on how many people we were hiring in that particular country. But for early stage market entry or for smaller teams, EOR was really the perfect solution. At Mixmax, we only hire contractors, so we use contractor management platform, and that helps us stay compliant and handle payments in a structured way. It's lean, it's efficient, and it works well for our global model.
Awesome. And have you seen EOR work as a long-term strategy? Because there's a lot of myths out there that EOR is just very short-term, and it doesn't really work that ways. It's absolutely how you said it, right? If in case you wanted to hire quickly, you kind of opt for EOR. But have you seen that work as a long-term strategy?
Yes, I have. While EOR is often framed as a short-term solution, I've seen it work well as a long-term strategy, or especially for companies that want to stay lean or test new markets over time. So, in fact, at Typeform, we've had team members on EOR for years in certain regions because it was just easier. Like the cost and complexity of setting up an entity didn't justify the change. So it just really depends on how many people you're looking to hire in a specific country, because you wouldn't open EOR for two people, I guess. Sorry, you wouldn't open a legal entity for a couple of people. So
Right.
it just makes no sense, or even for five people, I guess. So the key is really choosing a provider that's reliable, transparent, and is also able to evolve with your needs.
Got it. So now we've covered the part of hiring, the complexities, the payroll. But then, what does global workforce management mean at Mixmax? And management being the objective word over here.
Yeah, cool. So for us, it means more than just hiring across countries. It's also about creating a unified employee experience, regardless of where someone is located or how they contracted. So that includes consistent onboarding processes, shared documentation and system, a very strong async first communication culture, and also being mindful of different cultural norms, holidays, and working styles. So we also avoid like headquarters versus remote dynamics. There's no central office in any case, or privileged geography. It's like everyone is really on equal footing, which helps build trust and inclusion.
How do technology and automation support your recruitment process? Because I understand that all this is slightly manual intensive when you're dealing with people, when you're talking to them, and this particular industry and this particular domain specifically is very human driven, right? So how does technology and automation support your recruitment processes?
So, I mean, tech obviously is essential, especially when managing a high volume global hiring pipeline. So, apart from, of course, we have applicant tracking system called Greenhouse, which works pretty well. But I also personally use different AI tools to record and summarize interviews for better feedback alignment. Write rejection emails that are personalized but also efficient, draft scorecards and internal notes for hiring managers, and it also speeds up sourcing research and outreach messaging as well. So, using these tools frees me up to focus on what really matters, which is candidate experience, stakeholder communication, and strategy. So, automation doesn't replace the human element. I still look at every single CV or resume manually, so it's not that I'm using AI for that. Absolutely not. But so automation doesn't replace the human element, but it can absolutely boost quality and speed when it's used well.
Right. So it's kind of there to help you out, but not just really go ahead and completely overtake your work,
Oh
right?
no, no, no! I would never allow that to happen. No.
Awesome. And then, what are the benefits of outsourcing payroll or HR functions globally? What are the key benefits that you think you have been able to see?
The biggest benefit is speed to hire. So you can expand into new markets or onboard key talent without waiting months to set up a legal entity. It also significantly reduces your risk exposure. So try to manage contracts, tax withholding and local labor laws on your own, especially across 5 or 10 countries or 20 countries, it could be a nightmare. So
Right.
outsourcing gives you confidence that it's being done right, and it allows your internal team to focus on culture, retention, and leadership, and not paperwork.
Great. And just so we don't kind of miss out on these parts as well. What's one thing you wish more people understood about managing teams across borders?
Well, that it's not one size fits all. What works in London might not work in Buenos Aires or Bucharest. You have to be flexible and willing to adapt. You also need to communicate and over document. Clarity matters even more in distributed teams. And also beyond tools and time zones, I think empathy goes a long way. Understanding how people work, what motivates them, and what support looks like in their context.
So now we've done that, but then how do we compare the local and the global market? So what I want to basically understand over here would be, what opportunities open up when you're hiring globally versus when you're hiring locally.
So I think global hiring just really gives you a lot of benefits. So access to under-tapped talent pools that you would not necessarily have those talent pools locally, depending obviously on where you're hiring. You also have the ability to find niche or highly specialized skills. In fact, I remember once hiring. It was some kind of like a role I've never hired for before at Typeform. It was like a one-off position called video, something like a video engineer, and you will not believe how difficult it was to find anyone with those skill sets in entire Europe. There were like, I don't remember what the specific technologies were, but I could find just literally a handful of people in entire Europe, at least on LinkedIn, who have those skills. So obviously, if you can only hire in one location, you might not be able to hire anyone at all, because the talent pool was so small. I think global hiring also gives you greater diversity of thought and perspective, which improves innovation, and it's definitely much more cost efficient. Well, in some regions, depending on your budget, but you can obviously save money as well by hiring in different regions. And also, I think global hiring gives you resilience. Like if one market tightens, you can pivot your hiring to others. So that agility is definitely a competitive advantage that local hiring would never give you.
Wow. But then what is, and this is something that I would like to probably, get from you because you have been contributing to this industry for a very long time. What is one advice you would give to a tech company hiring its first international employee?
I would say start by defining the role and time zone coverage needed. Also, do you want an employee or do you want a contractor? And also, which platform or partner will manage compliance and payroll? So yeah, especially if you don't have a legal entity in that country. So then document your onboarding process and communication norms. Don't just assume that the global hire or international hire will just figure it out. You really want to support them well from day one, and also talk to someone who's done it before. You will avoid a lot of early missteps as well.
Got it. Got it. What's one administrative or legal challenge, global hiring helps you avoid is what I would want to understand from you.
So I think it helps avoid the complexity and cost of setting up local entities too early. That process can be slow, it can be expensive, and also resource intensive. So with a contractor model or an EOR solution, you can move faster, you can test markets, you can build your team before deciding whether permanent infrastructure is necessary. So it keeps you agile, especially in today's economic climate where speed and flexibility are everything.
Got it. Now let's talk about experiences. I understand that when you're working in a remote setup, it could be a different experience altogether. While you're working instead with a local entity where you're walking down to the office, probably working in the office. But how do you ensure a smooth experience for employees in different countries?
So we aim for clarity and consistency in communication regardless of contract type or location. So everyone goes through the same structured onboarding. We try to document everything, keep communication async friendly, and also be mindful of cultural context. So that means being aware of things like local holidays and working hours, avoiding language that assumes a single cultural perspective, and also staying flexible with how feedback is given. So some cultures value directedness, others expect more context or diplomacy. So we also avoid scheduling all hands or key meetings that consistently exclude certain time zones, and we make space for team members to share personal or cultural moments, which also builds connection and inclusion across borders. So it's not perfect, but it's evolving and it's definitely a priority.
Got it. Let's move, specifically to your industry, your sector. How do you see the global hiring and workforce management landscape evolving in your sector?
I think we're moving into a much more blended, flexible, and talent-first model, especially with all this competition for talent that's happening right now. So, I think we'll see more companies moving away from rigid employee versus contractor definitions, and instead building teams that combine full-timers, freelancers, EOR based hires, and long-term contractors all working cohesively. So, companies also need to will need to get much better at managing across time zones, cultures, and contract types, and not just tolerating the complexity, but actually actively designing for it. This means more investment in asynchronous collaboration, better global onboarding, and systems that give everyone equal visibility and voice, regardless of location. And on the tech side, I expect AI to keep transforming recruiting and HR operations, and all other functions as well. The teams that use automation to enhance the human side, not replace it, will be the ones who scale effectively without burning out. And finally, I think global hiring will become the norm, not the exception, especially in industries like SaaS and AI. The talent isn't all in Silicon Valley or London anymore. The companies that cling to outdated location strategies, I think, will fall behind.
Awesome. So, last but not the least, what's one key takeaway you hope listeners, especially those in HR and leadership roles, get from this conversation?
That global hiring is no longer just a strategy, it's a competitive advantage. To do it well, you need to move beyond checklists. It's not just about having the right EOR partner or payroll platform, it's about leading with clarity, flexibility, and respect for local context. When you treat global hiring as a human system, not just a legal or logistical one, you attract better talent, build stronger teams, and scale more sustainably. So, my advice: be intentional, hire thoughtfully, and design your systems to empower talent wherever it's found.
That's so insightful, Margaret. It has been absolutely a pleasure having you on board. Walk us through everything that we have talked about today, and we would love to have an opportunity, if in case we can obviously hash our brains out next time, come up with new topics, and obviously spread this awareness for our audiences as well.
Of course, thank you so much for having me.